Yo, what is up everybody, my name is Fitz, and now, finally, GGG has released part 1 of their 3.16 rebalances, which is focused on flasks and ailment mitigation. Now, this, I mean, is amazing. It's a huge amount of text, as you can see, so I unfortunately will not be going everything in detail, but of course I will leave the link in the description of the video. But I am gonna go through some of the most eye-catching things for me, and you know, still give you like a blanket or maybe like a one-liner part for each of the options that we can see, or like for each of the categories that we see. All right, so without further ado, let's get going. Now this is future me because I have looked up the changes that's gonna be going on. It's been so massive, like literally so massive. I am gonna have to divide some of the elements of the manifesto across other videos. I'm not sure if I'm gonna make more, but you know, I'm gonna try to make it at least as pretty condensed as possible. But the guaranteed change that I'm gonna go for is that I'm gonna separate the life flasks, the changes to the life flasks. And because I have included some calculations which I think are gonna be pretty informative for you guys, because you know, I love to do that shit. So that's basically it. We are still gonna continue with, you know, some of the things that we can compress into the video, but there will be a separate video just for life flasks and what I have seen, what I think is gonna happen. So you know, share your thoughts on that as well. Okay, now onto the proper video. So for the ailment mitigation, they have said that they have changed how flasks prevent ailments and curses, but didn't provide enough reasonable alternatives. So what they're gonna do is that they have swapped things around a bit, and this is gonna be very important. Have a look at this. The Purity of Elements aura will now grant you and nearby allies immunity to all elemental ailments, including your minions, as it's allies. And you also gain resistances. That's really powerful. It gives you like a very sensible option to go for that instead of, for example, Purity of Fire, Ice, and Lightning all combined. And it also has a reservation of 50%. Right? So the Anomalous Purity of Elements just basically increases the effect of the aura, and the Eternal Labyrinth enchantment has been changed accordingly because it will be given the numbers for the 50% reduced reservation. So it's basically like, you know, your grace, your haste will now have 50% reduced 15% reduced reservation. That's what's gonna happen to the Purity of Elements, right? But the immunity to all elemental ailments and elemental resistances to minions along with you is really strong for me, in my opinion. It seems way powerful. I mean, I'm not saying it's OP, but really powerful nonetheless. And this is the cool part. Steel Skin now grants immune to bleeding during effect. So linking it with increased duration instead of it just being there and, you know, you just having it on your left click while you're walking around, I think is going to be very worthwhile. And Tempest Shield has now become a reservation skill and gives you immunity to shock. Very nice as well, right? Okay, so for this part, utility flasks will be giving modifiers that will grant immunity to an ailment during flask effect, but lessen the duration of the flask. They're basically rebalancing it a little bit, which we will go into further detail down below because they have more details down there. But what they have here is that they have confirmed that allied consecrated ground will now give you reduced effective curses while you are standing on it. So very nice. A partial buff for the Inquisitor. Oh yeah, and let me just show you that you can now have 17 seconds of immunity to a particular ailment if it is on your life or mana flask. Very powerful, which we will go through again, by the way, down below. So as I said here, they will be changing out some passive skills, or passive clusters rather. So the Asylum, which is basically close to the Avatar of Fire, will now grant you chaos resistance as well as protection against curses, instead of just increasing the consecrated ground effect, which is actually way better. And between the Witch and the Shadow, you will have a new cluster that will protect you against poison, bleeding, and stun. So that basically gives, you know, any form of spellcaster that is going to start within that area, the Shadow, the Witch, and the Templar, at least the option to go for these passive skills and, you know, make you a little bit more durable. Whether or not it's going to be worthwhile, though, we will have to see, because if the numbers are going to be too small, then you can just go for something else that can give you higher protection against poison, bleeding, and stun, right? And they will also add new sources of protection from stuns, curses, critical strikes. Critical strikes meaning the Sanctum of Thought, right? The reduced damage from critical strikes. That's not going to be the only cluster anymore. And ailments, as well as more specialized mechanics like Corrupted Blood, Maim, Hinder, and Impale. It's actually weird though, because I don't know, for me personally, we barely find any enemies that impale us and hinder and maim. So I'm not sure on whether or not it is going to be significant, so I guess we'll have to see. But the highlight for me, there's going to be a new Keystone passive skill that will be added to the Scion area, because it says at the center of the tree that will cause intelligence to provide no bonus to energy shield, so you won't scale your energy shield, but instead reduce the elemental ailment duration on you. Think about yourself as an Inquisitor, right? You gain... Okay, wait a minute. Let's just go back here. Let's go to the Inquisitor, just to be sure. So this is the passive that we're talking about, right? Let's go to... There you go. Righteous Providence. Yes. This will give you 1% increased critical strike chance per point of strength or intelligence, whichever is lower. And you get flat 50 to strength and intelligence. Given the wording of this new Keystone skill, or this new Keystone passive, that it will not provide you a bonus to energy shield, but instead reduce elemental ailment duration on you. That can possibly give you an immediate 50% reduced elemental ailment duration if you are able to get this new passive Keystone early in the game. That is very, very powerful. And of course, since you are an Inquisitor anyway, which is basically a Templar, as long as you're going to be a spellcaster, you will gain a huge amount of intelligence. So, life-based spellcasters, I think, are going to be really, really benefiting from this. Because it didn't say that it will affect spell damage, right? They just said that it will hamper your energy shield. But, I mean, if you are an Inquisitor that will have 5,000, 6,000 life, which you can do because you are an Inquisitor, you know, that can give you a really, really good benefit and potentially give you ailment immunity overall. So that is going to be something that we will go for. Really interested in that. So next here though, to the Pantheon powers, they have basically buffed everything. They're you know, a lot, but one notable thing that I'd like to see, or I'd like to inform you guys, is that the upgraded Soul of the Brine King now can give you permanent freeze immunity. As you can see here, just cannot be frozen, so that's it. It can't be frozen, right? And the Soul of Tukohama will be buffed from its 8% damage reduction cap, or physical damage reduction cap rather, to 9%, so you gain 3% per second. And the life regen that you get, instead of being 0.5 per second up to 2%, is now going to be immediately applying 2% of your life regenerated per second while stationary. So that is actually a really, really good quality of life, I think, for me at least, you know? you immediately get additional 2% life regen instead of running the risk of, you know, staying up longer. Now, other parts, veiled modifiers on body armor have basically been buffed. And oh, here's a good part. A new crafting bench modifier for shields. You can take no extra damage from bleed while moving. You could craft it on a shield now. It's a crafting bench modifier. It's undeniable. That is gonna be really, really good. Very, very powerful. Because like I said, you can just craft a shield that has this. Get a jewel with immunity to corrupted blood. Don't need to worry about anything. You can change your staunching life flask now. You know, you can put the freeze immunity for 17 seconds if you want to. That's gonna be really powerful. So that opens up your utility flasks, right? Very, very interesting. And of course, you have a very nice very, very nice protection against well, not protection, but you know, at least durability against the ailments. You have ignite, duration reduction, reduced effective chill, shock, and curses as well. And of course, reduced effective freeze on helmets. And here they're just basically saying that they have, you know, rearranged the crafting bench modifier on lock locations, which is really good. You can have a look at that in the full manifesto. And here you go. And the chance for shields, there is the chance to avoid all elemental status ailments can now roll as a suffix on all shields as opposed to being visible on just pure dexterity shields. Nice form of damage mitigation there as well. And of course, it has been also buffed to give you 35% instead of 23 at the maximum. Very nice. Influenced items, what they have done is that they've basically changed all of the avoid, ignite, freeze, and shock modifiers to become just one tier, because they said the lower tier modifiers have been removed. So that basically means that only one tier has been remained, and the elevated modifiers have been adjusted accordingly. So basically, this is going to be up to 60% chance at one or at the one regular tier, and we can expect a higher chance and maybe an immunity once you elevate that. And that goes across the board for all of the other influenced items. Apart from the moving while bleeding doesn't cause you to take extra damage, since it has been applied here already as a crafting bench modifier, they have removed that modifier on hunter shields. So if you're going to try and do that, you don't need to worry about it anymore. And what else? They have improved the avoidance values on essences and buffed the ailment avoidance on abyss jewels. You have a new modifiers to regular jewels as well. They have buffed the stun avoidance on the brutal restraint notable, so it now has been doubled to 20 from 10, and the elegant hubris as well also has the avoid being chilled and chance to avoid being shocked now are at 80% from 50, so pretty strong. And the elegant form cluster jewel notable passive now grants 20% elemental ailment avoidance. Pretty good. Synthesis being buffed. Harvest, don't worry about it, it's not really strong. Not a change. not that much of a strong change, just 5% to avoid ailments. But this is a cool one though. This is one thing that I've also seen right here in the manifesto, and I have never seen on other items. You can obtain an implicit which will allow you to not be poisoned, ignited, or inflicted with bleed. It is now possible to get earlier in the game when corrupting a ring, and now has a higher outcome chance. So you can have a bleed ailment corruption on your ring. very interesting as well, isn't it? Like once you have enough currency, you can change your shield that has the bleed damage avoidance. Very interesting, right? Notes on the uniques that have been updated. The tier of purity no longer grants a chance to avoid elemental ailments. It now grants 5% to all elemental resistances because, of course, purity of elements now gives elemental ailment immunity. And the Conqueror's Longevity Jewel now gives you a 10% chance, which is very nice, very flat, you know, pretty good number from 3%. The Ghastly Theater can now gives you permanent immunity to bleeding, not corrupted blood, just bleeding. And you can use a Divine Orb, you know, for the ones that have their items in standard, you can just divine that, as well as with the Conqueror's Longevity, by the way. And the Kikazaru as well has buffed its effect of curses reduction 60% from 40. Very, very powerful. It'll be a great leveling item and a very good early game item if you manage to find that. So here we go. On to the flasks. Yo, what's up again? Future me here. I'm just basically shortening the outro for this particular video because, of course, you know, it's been really long. It literally is so long. I tried to make it as short as possible, but with so many things that they've added, it's still amazingly long. So TLDR, and the most striking notes for me: purity of elements, beautiful. Elemental ailment immunity to you and minions because it says nearby allies, you know, if I'm not mistaken. Immune to bleeding during steel skin, immune to shock with Tempest Shield. Very nice. Alright, and the new clusters that will give you the reworked Asylum, which will give you Chaos Res as well as protection against curses. The new cluster between the Witch and the Shadow that will protect you against poison, bleeding, and stun. Very interesting. I'd like to see how that plays out. And a lot of new sources that will protect you from stun, curses, critical strikes. So, like I said, not Sanctum of Thought is not going to be the only cluster anymore, so we may see some changes there. And of course, more ailments, as well as for the more niche ailments like, you know, Corrupted Blood, Maim, Hinder, and Impale. Yeah, but yeah. And of course, this new Keystone passive looks really, really juicy. I love this. What else? Shields take no extra damage from bleed while moving. Very helpful. Very, very helpful. Because that can also help casters. You know, like with casters, you're barely gonna have any specific suffixes anyway, and that is regarded as a suffix. So that is gonna be really, really strong. Right? What else? Flasks. Yeah, that is gonna be in a separate video. And that's basically it. So, very awesome. Thank you everybody so much for watching. Hope you all enjoyed. I will be uploading the flask segment separately because it's really long. It took me the video alone for the segment is 11 minutes. So I'm just gonna upload that particular part, just the 11 minutes, so that you guys can have like a feel for the flasks. It's very interesting. It's very interesting. That's all I gotta say. So please share your thoughts as well. Like I said, you know, full manifesto is gonna be in the description. I'm just so excited. I'm just so hyped. Yeah.